Hello Year 7 and welcome to lesson 3 of our Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe unit, where today we're going to be looking at costume design. So the first thing I'd like you to do please is turn to page 10 in your workbook, where you will see your do now task for the start of the lesson. You'll see a grid that looks like this. Your job is to match the correct stage lantern to its definition. So pause the video here and try and match up all of the lanterns to their definitions and then come back to me when you're done. Okay, great. So for today's lesson, we have got 2 lesson objectives. What I'd like you to do, please, is pause the video here and give those a read for me and come back to me when you're done. Okay, so you should have seen that you are taking on the role of a costume designer today. And you're going to be using keywords and looking at what we look for as a costume designer in order to create a costume that is appropriate for a character. So the first things first is I would like you to, just underneath your lesson objectives, find your keywords box, and you're going to put in the first 2 keywords for today's lesson, which are style and material. So write style and material in your box and then come back to me when you're done. That's great. So style and material are 2 very important keywords as a costume designer. Style can refer to lots of different things. Style can be determined based on history. So it could be a time period piece. So it could be something from like a Victorian period or anything that's happened in history that would be symbolic to the performance, perhaps. A lot of Shakespeare would be performed in a Shakespearean period where they would wear lots of different clothes compared to what we would wear now. So history is a factor. Religion, people wear different clothing based on their religion. So if the character has a religion, then we would need to consider that. Nationality, so depending on where they live in the world, that might determine what kind of costume they would wear. We all wear costumes every day and we do that depending on where we are in the world. So that can have an impact. Or we could consider the society, so sort of what's fashionable at the time. So something that's fashionable in 2021 probably wasn't as fashionable as say in 2019, yeah, because fashion is ever changing. So that's what style means. That's what we're going to consider for today, especially for Lucy, considering that she is from 1940. The second thing is material, and material is the fabric used to create garments of clothing. So materials can symbolize quite a lot about a character. It can symbolize their wealth, whether they're rich or poor. It could also symbolize just sort of their age, I suppose. So children wear a certain type of fabric, and as you get older, you may be more experimental with the fabrics that you wear. So if you have a little look in the label on whatever you're wearing now, later on, you will see the material that your clothing is made out of. And 9 times out of 10, especially if it's school uniform, you're looking at about polyester and cotton, which are the 2 sort of standard fabrics mainly used for clothing garments that are made in current today. But back in history, they would have used different fabrics. So it's just something to consider when we are looking at costume. Now, before we get into the costume designing, I'd like us to see if we were right with our matching up of our lanterns and definitions. So if you can get yours ready, let's see if you were correct. So we have, first off, a Fresnel. Let's see if you managed to get it right. If you said it was a soft edge spotlight that offers more control over the angle and shape of the light, then you would have been correct. If you didn't manage to get this correct, try and correct it with a different coloured pen. Now onto a flood. If you said it fills a space with light, they can be used against the backdrop or as a floor light, then you would have been correct. Profile or spotlight is a lantern that can focus a beam of light onto a specific place or actor. And then finally, that leaves Parkan, which produces a strong beam of light, great for creating bold colours on stage. So those are your answers for the do now task. If you managed to get all 4 correct, give yourself a big smiley face. If you didn't manage to get them all correct, then you can just use a different coloured pen to correct yourself. Okay, so we're going to move on to task 1 of today then, the role of a costume designer. Now on your page, you'll see this text that you've got on my screen here. I would like you to pause the video here and give it a read for me and come back to me when you are done. Okay, so as a costume designer, you are going to be fully in charge of deciding and designing what clothes or garments you want your actors playing Lucy and Mr. Tumnus to wear. So you have got quite an important job today, and it's going to be your vision and your decisions entirely. So it can be whatever you like. Now, before you even start creating or designing your costumes in your heads, what we need to consider first as designers is what we call sick gap. So this is sort of step one of a process. So we're going to look at what sick gap stands for and how it might apply to Lucy and Mr. Tumnus. And then you can go away and start thinking about what costumes you see them wearing. Okay, so we would use sick gap to show status to start with. So are they a high status? Are they a low status? That could be represented through the clothing that they wear. Individual character traits would be our IC. So if they are a type of character, so if they are quite innocent, let's say, then perhaps they would wear colours of white or pink or something to show their personality. If they're wearing a particular accessory or they need a particular accessory to show their individual character traits, that might be something you consider as well. Moving on then to our G, which is gender. Obviously, Lucy is a female and Mr. Tumnus is a male. So how would we show the difference between the two? Age is a big factor. Lucy is very young and Mr. Tumnus is very, very old. So how could we show the difference between the two of them? And then, of course, physicality. So how will the actor move in the costume? Now, this is probably more steered towards Mr. Tumnus as he is a faun, so half man and half baby deer. So he's not fully human. So how are we going to be able to show using costume that he is part animal? So that will be something you need to consider as well. So sick gap is our first port of call in terms of costume. So this is what I'd like you to do. Okay, today you're going to be in charge of creating ideas of costume, as I've mentioned, and you're going to put your ideas down onto paper using the templates that I've given you on the following page, on page 11. So you'll see it there with the arrow. You're going to either sketch or annotate, so you don't need to be an amazing drawer for this. You can just put notes on what you want. It's entirely up to you how you wish to do it. There is no pressure to draw if you do not want to do so. Okay, so we're going to do this in 2 steps. Okay, and we're going to start with step 1. So you're going to go through sick gap for me and you are going to do some research. Okay, so do some research for me. That's either through discussion, so you can speak with anyone who you're nearby, you can do pair and share, you can talk through your ideas, or you can use your internet if you are at home. Then you can use your internet at home to perhaps do some research into the time period, 1932, perhaps like World War II, because she's a World War II child, Lucy is. You can have a little look if you'd like to. There's no pressure to do internet research at all. You can just do this off what you envisage, which is fine. But you are going to be designing. So if you need to do some research, I would. You need to go through sick gap first and make your decisions accordingly. Once you've hit step 1 and you've done all your research and you're happy with your ideas, then you can go into designing, which is step 2. So that's where you're going to start drawing and annotating your ideas for costume on your following page. Okay. Now on your page 11, you will see in the top corner in green some key words that I would like you to focus on when describing what costume pieces they are wearing. Okay. So I'm going to go through that a little bit more with you on the next slide. Okay, so when you have finished your design stage, so step 1, you've done all your research and you've referred to sick gap and you've got a general idea of what you would like Lucy and Mr. Tumnus to start wearing. Then once you've done that, I would like you to consider the keywords that we're going to focus on for today. These are going to be used in your descriptions. Okay, so when you're annotating onto your costume designs, you are going to write and refer to at least 2 or 3 keywords for each piece of clothing that you would like your actors to wear. So for example, I may put Lucy in a cardigan. Okay, so I've decided Lucy's going to be wearing a cardigan. So When I go down the keywords, I'm going to go to fit first, so how it fits on her body. Right, well, for Lucy, I'm going to say her cardigan is quite baggy, okay, and it's going to hang off one shoulder. So that's what I'm going to do. When I've written it on my template, I'm going to draw an arrow and say it's hanging off her shoulder and its fit is baggy. For material, I'm going to say what material the cardigan is made out of. Well, in this case, it's going to be wool, because wool is warm and it was a popular choice back in World War II time, so 1932 to 1940s, let's say, because wool it could be handmade by somebody, and also it's a warm material. So that's my material there. She's going to have it in wool. Colour. So I'm going to say that Lucy's cardigan is in a dark brown. Okay, dark brown was quite a fashionable style back then, and also it would show that if it was dirty, that it wouldn't show up very easily. Let's say. So she's going to have a dark brown colour. So I haven't chosen personality or age in that consideration. I've considered the style and the practicality of it, really, because brown was a common colour for young children in the 1930s, 1940s. The length of it, okay, well, the cardigan is a cardigan. It's I'm not going to go too much into detail about length of that, but I might say that the cardigan comes down to her waist, or I may say it goes down to her hips. So for this particular piece, I'm going to say it goes down to her hip. It's hip length, okay? Accessories. Is she going to have any accessories with this garment? No. She could have a brooch on it, but I've decided not to do that. And hair and makeup, well, that's not really applicable for a cardigan, so I'm going to ignore that. Okay, so I've done my cardigan. For you, when it comes to your decisions of costume pieces, that's where you can go through the list and refer to as many keywords as possible in describing. Now, for Lucy, for her hair and makeup are just as important for costume. It's not always about the material or the garments that are being worn. It's also about what you see. So once you've decided on the clothing aspect, I then want you to go on to the hair and makeup. Okay, so what's the hair going to look like? What is the makeup going to look like? And it's not just about if they're wearing mascara or a bit of lipstick. It's about, if, especially for Mr. Tumnus, as he's half man, half deer, you know, is there going to be any prosthetics? Is there going to be any special effect makeup being worn here? In which case, that's where you can decide what's what. Men wear makeup too, okay, especially in film and stage. So it's just something for you to consider, okay? So once you've got to step 2 and you're going through your designing, I would like you to refer to as many keywords as I've mentioned here as possible, okay? Don't try and refer to all of them for every single piece of costume you've got, because some of them won't apply, as I've mentioned to you earlier. Okay, so just do the ones that you think apply to your said garments. You're going to dress them from head to toe. Okay, so just think head to toe, from start to finish. What are they going to wear? What are we going to see? Okay, use as many colours as you like with your coloured pens and pencils. And as I say, you don't have to be an amazing drawer. You just need to make sure that the detail and information is given on your templates. Okay, and at the bottom of your template sheet on page 11, you will see the optional task there, which you can complete if you have got some time at the end of the lesson. Okay, so I'm going to let you get on and start designing your costumes. Go through steps 1 and 2 and try and get onto the optional task at the end if you have time.